Good evening, friends. Of all of the many thousands of newspaper stories I wrote about life in this town, back when I was known as Jim, more on that later, there was one that I was thinking about on the very darkest of my days, on April 4th, 2020. And the story was a article I wrote for the Washington City paper just a couple of years earlier about a man named Franklin Fry. And Franklin wasn't a celebrity or a politician. He was a 24-year-old postal clerk who in 1971 was hanging around a group of friends at the National Mall. And a tourist had her necklace stolen. It was worth $20. And the crowd dispersed. But Frankie didn't go anywhere because he had no reason to, because he said he didn't hurt her, he didn't take anything. But he stayed, and the police charged him with stealing that necklace. And his court-appointed attorney told him to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. And I interviewed Franklin 40 years later at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. He never got out. And towards the end, the federal court system literally lost his file. And I was thinking about Franklin that night because, unlike Franklin, there was good cause to question my sanity that night. I found myself on the darkest of days, handcuffed to a hospital bed with a blood alcohol level twice the legal limit, a police officer standing outside my door, and a question blaring through my head, which was how could it have gotten like this? But I knew from my story about Franklin that whatever I do and say from the moment those cuffs go on has got to be geared towards convincing the people who need convincing to let me go home so I don't get lost, so I don't end up like that. And I told them about all of my problems. I told them about my personal life coming undone, my professional life coming undone. I told them about all of the people I had lost too soon and too often, and fears of loss I couldn't even comprehend. I told them everything except the part that matters. I told them everything except the truth. And the truth was that for the better part of 20 years, I had made a very good living in this town, uncovering the secrets of Washington, D.C., from murders to knockoff handbags in Georgetown worth more money than I'd make in a year, to everything in between, political scandals, affairs, everything. And I was good at my job. I was worth every penny because I knew a thing or two about keeping secrets. And my secret would be in the closet of all places, as I'm just crouched there, crying, upset, screaming, what am I? What am I? It would be in the blue duffel bag on mornings after nights I didn't remember too well, in the back of the minivan with all the stuff of family life there, and then that duffel bag, the contents of which I would use to transform myself into another person, to spend time in dark places and dark spaces in very, very self-destructive ways. And in this world, it's hard enough to live one life, but to live two is impossible. I know, I tried. And it almost all came crumbling down. And when you hit rock bottom, you don't have much left. But I did have the words of my then late mother, Dolores Carey McElhatton, who always told me to put your shoulders back and just take a step out into the world. And so I began to open myself up to change. I talked to my doctor. I got gender-affirming medical care. I went to a support group. I talked to a therapist. I stopped drinking. I started to feel better about myself. But maybe the most important thing I did was to go out and get a job. I took Jamie from this dark place and I brought Jamie out into the light. And I applied for 3 jobs, just a spur of the moment thing: Wegmans, Big Lots, and Mom's Organic Grocery Store. And Big Lots, shame on them, never even bothered to call back. And Wegmans lost out. And I walked into my interview at Mom's and I said, I haven't worked in a grocery store in a very long time, but I will work hard, I will show up on time, and I will try my very best. And I also told them that my name was Jamie and that my pronouns are they, them. But when you put yourself out into the world for the first time in a different way, you just want to fit in. It's not easy working in a grocery store. It's not easy dealing with long lines of customers or, telling the difference between garnet Japanese and purple sweet potatoes, lifting all the crates of beans and being on your feet for 9 hours a day. And there would be these moments during the day where, maybe a glass jar would break or something, and Jamie will get it. He's here, he's there, go to Jamie's register, he this, he that, he. And I never did or said anything about it because I told myself, well, I'll do that later. I just need to get through this moment in time. And then after a couple months, I didn't feel too good about it. And so I cut the words they, them out of a dear friend's Dr. Seuss book. And I scotch taped them to my name tag under my name. And I wore it to work. And at first, I didn't flip it over. And then a friend, less than half my age, saw what I had put on my name tag. And she said, Jamie, I'm so proud of you. Why don't you just open the register and I'll bag for you and it's going to be okay. And that's what I did, and it was okay. In fact, so many people showed so much kindness. I was blown away. And most customers didn't even care. They just wanted to get their food and go on home. And in ways, they were my favorite because I don't want to be anything special. And then there were the handful of others, usually men my age, men who will look at me, look at my name tag, look at me again, and sir me and buddy me and pal me to death. Would you like your milk in a bag? No thanks, Jamie, I'll manhandle it. And I would have trouble in these moments. And I would sometimes flip my name tag back over so you couldn't see it or tuck it in my vest and I'd walk away. But I had these friends in the store who cared for me and loved me. And one friend named Rosario is my good friend, and she doesn't speak much English and I don't speak much Spanish. And one time she saw me having a problem with a customer and I wanted to tell her what happened. And so I stretched my arm out and I said, mujer. And then my other arm, and I said, hombre. And then I put my hands in the middle, and I said, Jamie and media, muy difícil today. It's very hard today. And she gave me the biggest, warmest hug I had ever received. And you have no idea how important that is when everything is so tenuous, when you're putting yourself out into the world in a different way for the first time. And I began to feel really good about myself. And all of a sudden, 3 or 4 days a week at this store wasn't enough to be my best self. I wanted to be my best self all of the time. And one day last summer, I was riding my bicycle to work, and I thought I could beat a car through an intersection, and I was proven wrong. And I ended up in that same emergency room less than 3 years later. But this time I was 40 pounds lighter. This time I didn't drink anymore. This time I was off of high blood pressure medication. And I wanted to tell them why. I felt so proud. I wanted to tell them why I was doing so much better. And then they handed me the hospital intake form. And it only had 2 boxes for people to be able to say who they are, M and F. And I took the form back up to the intake nurse, and I said, you don't have a box for me. And I held up my driver's license, and I said, the DMV has a box for me. And she said, well, you don't have to fill out the form. And I said, I want to fill out the form. I want to be able to tell you who I am. And I'll spare you all the details, but as a result of that interaction, Inova is going to change all of its patient intake forms across all of its doctor's offices. And I check in on them every once in a while to make sure they're making progress, because Jim or Jamie, I still might have a newspaper story or 7 left in me. But my story doesn't have a neat ending. I'm going to go back to work in a couple of days, and I'll deal with all the usual stuff that I deal with. But the reason I came here tonight to tell you my story, in spite of the fact it's very, very personal and very painful in some ways, is because I'm also proud of it. And I think it's important because there are people in this world, people in power, people who wear neckties and collars, who would have you believe that to be who you are, to be your true self, is to somehow be wrong or other or ungodly. when in fact I have a body of evidence, my own, which tells me that to be your best self, to be your true self, is indeed to be a reflection of God in all of their glory. And who I am, brothers and sisters, and especially all my dear friends in between, who I am is who my grocery store name tag says I am, and praise the Lord for that.